Hello, I'll be walking you through how to execute the Mojo scoring pipeline with MiNiFi C++. So to begin, we'll launch an EC2 instance. Let's reload this page. Let's log in. Let's launch an EC2 instance. We'll search for Ubuntu 1804 T2 2x large. Keep these default. Change this to 256. Keep that default. We'll add on a port 9090. So we're reviewing, looks like we're ready for launch. And I already created the key pair, so I'm going to go with EC2 model deployment. I'll click on acknowledge, launch. So what we need to do is get the public DNS, open the terminal. We need to go into bash profile, modify our public DNS. So there it is, die scoring instance. Modify it and close the terminal. Reopen it for the changes to take effect. Our instance, EC2 instance is running, so we'll do history grep SSH since I've used it before, because we're going to now jump into the EC2 instance. Okay, we're in. What we need to do next is, I recommend that you install Anaconda. So we're going to do this for Linux. We'll copy the link address. Okay, so we have Anaconda. Now we'll run bash, install it, reading through the acknowledgement, license agreement. I recommend if it's your first time installing Anaconda, read through this. Type yes. And then we want Anaconda to be installed in the home. We'll go to Anaconda 3 location, so click enter. Yes, we initialize Anaconda 3. Okay, next what we'll do is we'll exit and SSH into EC2 instance again. Now Anaconda has been installed successfully, and we're going to create our virtual environment, call it model deployment, and install Python 3.6. So yes. Okay, we're going to activate. And then for Ubuntu, what we're going to do, we're going to install MiNiFi C++. So first, since there are some dependencies, we're going to install libleveldb-dev sudo we'll make sure we have libxml2 installed. Okay, and go over to the downloads page. So I already went to the downloads page and I selected Ubuntu, so I'm just going to copy this link address. Put my CD into, once we extract MiNiFi, we'll CD into the directory. And we'll set the MiNiFi home environment variable. Go into the profile. Type export. MiNiFi home. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to install the Driverless AI Mojo dependencies. And if you don't already have it, let's clone the deployment examples repo. So let's go back. Let's go into let's git clone on branch Mojo py MiNiFi CPP. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to install data table pandas and SciPy. So pip install next pandas, and then SciPy. Alright, and then what we need to do next is we need to install Mojo 2 py runtime for Linux. So first we will go into deployment examples, Mojo 2 py, to Mojo py MiNiFi. Alright, we want to cd into model deployment along this path, get to Linux. We're going to do a pip install for Mojo. Okay, it looks like it's successfully installed. What we need to do next is we need to set our environment variable for the Driverless AI license key. You could also set a Driverless AI license file, but since we're on the EC2 instance, we'll just set the key because it'll be easier. So we're going to go into our profile, and type export Driverless AI license key equals what you'll do here is you're going to copy and paste over your Driverless AI license key. So I'll do that now. So I copied over the Driverless AI license key and I saved the profile file. Now we're back in the terminal. For the changes to take effect, we'll just exit and then we'll SSH back in. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to add the MiNiFi C++ Python custom processors to the MiNiFi product. So all the assets for running this example are in the deployment examples repo under MiNiFi Mojo py MiNiFi CPP. And so we're going to be in this folder here, MiNiFi CPP. Okay, and we're going into MiNiFi Python. So MiNiFi puts all these Python processors in this folder, and we're going to add on to that. We'll create a directory called h2o die MSP, and then we're going to cd into h2o, and we're going to copy over our first Python processor. So I've already saved these paths to the processors ahead of time, so I'm just going to copy in the commands. So what we're getting is the convert ds to csv Python script from our deployment examples Mojo py MiNiFi CPP folder, and copying it over to our MiNiFi application. So there it is. Now we'll do similar for die MSP, so for Mojo scoring pipeline. Okay, and there it is. And what we need to do now is we need to update our configuration files. So going into the conf directory, and then first we'll update this MiNiFi properties. So also in the die deployments Mojo py MiNiFi CPP folder, I have a MiNiFi properties file that's been updated. So MiNiFi will be able to find these two Python processors. So if we look in that file, we see this last line. What we did was originally it said MiNiFi home, MiNiFi Python, right? But we needed to also tell MiNiFi that we have a new folder in there that holds our H2O processors. So next what we're going to do is we're going to be working with MiNiFi config YAML files to build out MiNiFi flows. One that will do real-time scoring and the other that will do batch scoring. So we're already in our conf directory. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the interactive scoring example first. So again, I have a config file from the deployment examples MiNiFi, the Mojo py MiNiFi CPP. We're just going to copy that over. There it is. So what we need to do is we just need to modify our config YAML. So we're just going to move in the config MSP interactive scoring into the config YAML file. Next we'll analyze what is in this config YAML file. So again, this explains our MiNiFi flow. Okay. So we can see the name of the flow is MiNiFi Mojo py real-time scoring flow. And we can see we have a get file processor where it's pulling in data from this input directory. Again, the data is test real-time data. And then we can see here we have an execute die Mojo scoring pipeline processor, and we're telling MiNiFi the script, the Python script, where you can find it is in this location here. And then a dependency for this Python script, Python processor, is the pipeline.mojo, and we tell MiNiFi where to find that. So then we have to convert ds to CSV, so it's converting a data source to a CSV format, and we use a custom Python processor to do this as well, along with H2O's open source data table library. And then we have log attribute to log the attributes, update attribute to update the file name before we save it to the local file system, where we save it with put file processor, and we save it in this particular directory, prediction real-time data. And there's a conflict resolution strategy, so if we've already saved a file name with that name, it just replaces that one. And then here are all the connections. So we're saying get file connects to execute Mojo scoring pipeline on relationship success, and then execute Mojo scoring pipeline connects to convert VS to CSV, and so forth. And we make it all the way down to connecting eventually to the put file processor. Okay, so now that we have the config, what we can do is we can cd back once to our base directory of MiNiFi, and then what we want to do is we want to start MiNiFi. And I'm going to open a second terminal to show you guys as well the logs where we can see the action happening. So I'll just SSH in here again. Okay, and the moment I start MiNiFi, a logs directory will be created. Okay, so MiNiFi starting, we have this logs directory, we're going to go into it, do a tail F on the file, and what it says is, right, so it's saying there's no module named pandas, and again, remember we created virtual environments, so we just have to jump into that virtual environment. So we'll just conda activate model deployment. And this is good too, because we want our development environment to be isolated from our base environment. Okay, now we'll start MiNiFi. We'll look at the logs as well. So first look at the logs, start it. And that's a good sign. We can see that data is flowing from processor to processor. We can also see get attribute from that execute Mojo scoring pipeline processor. We can see the predictions for hydraulic cooling condition. And let's look at where the data, so the prediction data is being saved. So we'll do it in the second terminal. So we're looking at real-time predictions, and it's being saved in this path here. Okay. See these files, we'll just look at one of them, do a cat to output what's inside it. You can see here are the real-time scores for hydraulic cooling condition. Here's 3, 20, and 100, and the percentage, the probability that it's 3 is 43%, probability that it's 20 is 36%, and so forth. And what these mean is, let's start with 100 first. If it's 100, that means that the hydraulic cooling is functioning at 100%, the best cooling condition. If it's at 3, then the hydraulic cooling is near failure, so we may have to look at maintenance being done for the hydraulic cooling, get that replaced, for instance. Okay, what I want to show you guys next is the example for batch scoring. So Driverless AI Mojo scoring pipeline can also support batch scoring, where if we have a file that has multiple rows of data in it, the Mojo will be able to do a batch score on that. So we turned off MiNiFi. What we need to do, the difference here is we're going to go into our config directory again. Okay, we're going to overwrite our current config file with a config file for running a MiNiFi flow that does batch scoring. So we have this same path to our DI deployment examples, Mojo, PY, MiNiFi, CPP folder, and we have config files here that we're copying over. There is one for batch scoring. We're going to copy that over. Oh, whoops. Okay, and we're going to overwrite the current one that we have in here. Okay, and this one's slightly different from our previous config file. Just the get file processor is getting batch data from, so the location where it's getting the batch data is different from the location where it was getting the real-time data. So that's the main difference here. And also the other difference is where the MiNiFi flow writes the predictions to, that's also a different path output directory. So we're going to run this example, and I'm also going to show you guys the logs as well. So go here, do that. Currently MiNiFi is off, which is good. Going to start it. So that's good. Looks like MiNiFi is writing the data to the local file system for batch predictions, and we can see the first row of predictions as well. So let's turn MiNiFi off. Okay, and let's go to the location where those predictions are being stored. So here we see one file. We're going to cat that and output it. So we can see the predictions for hydraulic cooling condition through using batch scoring. So originally there was a file that had multiple rows of data, and we used a Mojo scoring pipeline to do batch scoring on that, and this is the result. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys on using the MiNiFi C++ application to execute the Mojo scoring pipeline to do batch scoring and interactive scoring.